The silence swept across Lost Pine Ridge, carrying with it the promise of another bitter autumn frost. Alicia Brooks knew this place intimately. She had traversed these mountains, mapped their hidden trails, and braved their relentless seasons for decades. It was here that she'd first learned the gentle humility nature taught, where she'd sharpened her senses, tracking lost hikers, and ultimately it was here that her most haunting failure lingered in the whispering trees. In 1995, the woods had swallowed 5 vibrant college students whole, leaving behind only scattered remnants of a frantic fight for survival. At first glance, it appeared to authorities as a tragic accident, an inexperienced group's miscalculation of the ruthless terrain and merciless elements. Alicia had been called in as lead search and rescue, hopeful, at first confident even. But as days turned to weeks, hope curdled into grim resignation. They found cryptic messages carved into trees and panicked scribbles on scraps of paper, but no bodies. No concrete answers, just maddening ambiguity. 4 years later, retirement had not dulled Alicia's nightmares. They came unpredictably, blurring lines between guilt, dread, and unfinished duty. She felt deeply responsible. Perhaps she had missed something vital. Perhaps if she'd pressed harder, searched longer, defied orders, even those students would be safe in their homes rather than spectral figures haunting her dreams. Now, compelled by unresolved doubt and an obsession nurtured through sleepless nights, Alicia had returned to Lost Pine Ridge. Late autumn's bleak touch transformed the forest, the last of the leaves clinging desperately, as brittle and exhausted as her own weary bones. Each step back into the dense wilderness evoked memories more vivid and painful than anticipated. The trail to the abandoned campsite was overgrown nature, methodically reclaiming its territory, yet Alicia navigated it with practiced ease, her old ranger instincts guiding her feet even as her thoughts wandered into darker terrains. The clearing emerged suddenly startlingly intact, yet profoundly changed. Shattered tent poles, rusted cooking gear, torn fabric remnants, all eerie monuments to desperate struggle, lay frozen in silent testimony. Pausing, Alicia took in a slow breath, the cold air sharp in her lungs. Her pulse quickened and memories surged tactile and relentless. Her gaze settled on the twisted branches of a nearby pine. There, partially obscured by layers of resin and decay, she glimpsed something metallic gleaming faintly in the waning daylight. Her heartbeat echoed in her ears as she stepped forward, curiosity entwined with dread. "What did we miss?" she murmured, her voice almost swallowed by the thickening mist. Her fingers brushed the rough bark, and carefully, methodically, she uncovered a small silver bracelet, dirt-packed into the engraved initials MP. Alicia's chest tightened. This was no accident. She'd just found proof that their worst fears paled in comparison to reality. Alicia's breath fogged the crisp air as she knelt the silver bracelet, cold and delicate, between her trembling fingers. She brushed the dirt away, carefully, revealing the engraved initials. Clearly MP. Her mind raced, trying to recall the names from the original investigation. Could this belong to someone overlooked in the chaos of those first frantic searches, standing slowly? Alicia scanned the abandoned campsite again, each relic whispering fragments of panic and desperation. She moved cautiously, her boots crunching lightly against the frost-hardened earth. Her eyes caught a faded scrap of paper pinned beneath a stone, fluttering weakly in the breeze. Gently lifting the stone, Alicia unfolded the brittle note, the handwriting hurried and chaotic. "They're watching us. Someone's lying. Trust no one." A chill deeper than the autumn cold seeped into her bones. Alicia remembered discovering notes like this before, dismissed as paranoia, the ramblings of scared, inexperienced campers. Now the sinister implications felt inescapable, undeniable. Had she overlooked something critical, blinded by assumptions? The forest seemed to tighten around her, the towering pines looming larger, shadows stretching like specters at dusk. She took a shaky breath, grounding herself. Her mind flashed to the faces of the missing students she'd studied obsessively. Julia's anxious eyes, Devon's infectious laughter, Marcus's cautious glances, each image a quiet accusation. Alicia's careful exploration yielded more remnants scattered across the clearing. A torn jacket sleeve snagged in brush, another scribbled note wedged under a fallen log, smeared and unreadable except for the chilling words, "Help us." Each discovery deepened the sense of urgency pulsing through her veins. She paused to jot down details meticulously in a weathered notebook, her hands steadied by the familiarity of documentation. Each clue reignited her resolve, peeling away layers of complacency and official explanations, revealing raw truths she could no longer ignore. As the daylight waned, Alicia knew she had little time left before darkness reclaimed Lost Pine Ridge. Reluctantly, she turned to retrace her steps back to her cabin, her thoughts heavy with unanswered questions. The bracelet lay carefully tucked in her pocket, its slight weight a constant reminder of the unsettling discoveries. She cast one final glance over the clearing. This place held secrets darker than mere misfortune. A calculated malice had lingered here, hidden in plain sight. "I'm sorry," Alicia whispered softly, her words swallowed by the gathering twilight, a promise of atonement fueling her resolve. She would not abandon them again. The shadows of Lost Pine Ridge stretched long and menacingly across Alicia's path, each rustle of leaves amplifying her unease. Her steps back to the cabin were measured, burdened not only by the weight of physical exhaustion, but by the heavier toll of unanswered questions. The bracelet, secure in her pocket, pressed insistently against her consciousness, an undeniable symbol of her past failures. Inside the modest cabin, Alicia lit a lantern, casting flickering amber hues across the rustic interior. The walls, adorned with maps and photographs from countless searches, chronicled years of dedication, but tonight they felt like bitter reminders of shortcomings rather than badges of honor. She carefully spread the newly discovered clues on a worn wooden table, the notes, torn fabric, and the delicate bracelet. Each artifact seemed to whisper accusations into the quiet night air. Alicia's thoughts spiraled inward, tormented by the ghosts of the lost campers. Why had she accepted the official narrative without deeper scrutiny? Had her instincts dulled with age? Or was the oversight a product of something more insidious? A subconscious reluctance to confront a darker truth. A sudden crack from the woods jolted her from introspection, her heart hammering fiercely against her rib cage. Alicia moved swiftly to the window, her keen eyes scanning the tree line. Darkness had fully enveloped the forest, reducing visibility to shadows dancing ominously under the pale glow of the crescent moon. She exhaled slowly, willing herself calm. Yet the pervasive sense of being watched lingered, unsettling her resolve. Alicia reached for the drawer beneath her table, pulling out a battered folder labeled 1995, Lost Pine Incident. She paged through the contents, meticulously revisiting each document, each photograph with fresh suspicion. Her pulse quickened as previously overlooked inconsistencies surfaced. Initial eyewitness accounts brushed aside a single line in a report, subtly casting doubt on Counselor Martha Pratt's seemingly innocuous testimony. Her gaze sharpened on Martha Pratt's file, noting the timid, unassuming photo pinned to the corner. Quiet, reliable Martha, the counselor who'd been nearly invisible during the investigation. Alicia had barely noticed her at the time, her meek demeanor fading into the backdrop of louder personalities and more pressing leads. Yet now Alicia wondered, had Martha Pratt's quiet presence masked deeper, darker intentions? A cold realization solidified in her chest, crystallizing years of guilt into actionable suspicion. Alicia knew she had no choice but to revisit the original suspects with newfound skepticism, no matter how unsettling the implications. The campers' desperate voices had echoed unanswered for too long. She closed the folder decisively, steeling herself against the fears gnawing at her resolve. This time, Alicia promised silently she would follow the clues wherever they led, no matter how sinister the destination. Alicia awoke at dawn, her sleep shallow and disturbed by fragmented dreams of dark forests and whispered pleas. The bracelet still sat upon the table, gleaming softly in the early morning light, a beacon drawing her towards uncomfortable truths. She knew her next step had to be decisive, her instincts now undeniably attuned to the subtle dangers lurking beneath the surface. After a brief breakfast, she donned her coat and set out toward the small town library, a repository of local history and, more importantly, community records. Her pace was brisk urgency, quickening her stride through the chilly streets, still sleepy beneath the faint, diffused sunlight filtering through the dense autumn fog. Inside the quiet building, Alicia requested archival files from the librarian, a kindly older man who'd known her since her days as a ranger. With practiced precision, she combed through yearbooks, employment records, and newspaper clippings until the puzzle pieces began to fall into place. There, buried within the community newsletters and staff photographs, she found confirmation of her suspicions Martha Pratt had quietly transferred from another college under murky circumstances just a year before the disappearances. Alicia's heart raced as she pieced together the timelines, noting unexplained gaps and vague, carefully worded explanations in the official documents. Frustration gnawed at her patience, the bureaucratic language obscuring the darker narrative Alicia now suspected. She turned abruptly back to the librarian, her voice low and urgent. "Do you remember Martha Pratt? Quiet, shy, almost invisible." The librarian hesitated, his eyes narrowing thoughtfully. "I do. Polite woman, always keeping to herself. But..." He paused, glancing briefly at the window as if checking for unwanted listeners. There were whispers. Nothing concrete, just rumors of inappropriate questions, overly personal counseling sessions. Nothing anyone wanted to believe. The information settled heavily in Alicia's chest, confirmation mingling with discomfort. Martha Pratt had skillfully cultivated invisibility, slipping unnoticed through the cracks in plain sight. Alicia thanked the librarian quietly and left determination etched deeply in her features. Outside, the morning fog had thickened, clinging to the town like a tangible anxiety. Alicia felt a shiver run down her spine, not from the cold, but from the realization that the scope of Martha Pratt's deceit stretched far deeper than she'd imagined. Climbing into her truck, Alicia reached for the bracelet resting now in her coat pocket, its delicate chain twisted in her fingers like a fragile lifeline connecting past horrors to present revelations. She took a deep, steadying breath, acknowledging the weight of responsibility now firmly upon her shoulders. The chase was renewed. Alicia knew her mission was clear: to uncover the truth hidden behind Martha Pratt's carefully constructed facade, no matter the cost. Lost Pine Ridge demanded answers, and she was determined to deliver them. Alicia navigated the winding road toward the outskirts of town, where dense woodland gave way to a secluded clearing occupied by Stan, the reclusive figure who had always lurked on the fringes of suspicion. His presence was an unsettling, whispered element in every local tragedy, though no formal accusation had ever firmly attached itself to him. As the trees closed in tighter around her, she felt the subtle squeeze of claustrophobia, intensified by the thickening fog and the oppressive silence enveloping her truck. Stan's cabin was a weathered structure almost swallowed whole by the encroaching wilderness. Alicia parked cautiously, stepping from her truck into the damp, chilling air. The forest here was quieter, as if holding its breath in anticipation. "Stan," Alicia called out softly, wary of startling him. "It's Alicia Brooks. We need to talk." For a moment, silence reigned, broken only by the distant rustle of unseen creatures. Then, the cabin door creaked slowly open, revealing Stan's wary, weather-beaten face, framed by long, unkempt hair. His eyes flickered nervously, deep-set and suspicious, scanning Alicia carefully before beckoning her inside with a curt nod. Inside the cabin smelled faintly of wood smoke and old paper. Alicia's gaze roved across shelves lined with survival gear, carefully arranged, but coated with dust, hinting at long periods of disuse. Stan settled into an old chair, hands gripping the worn armrests with white-knuckled tension. "I know why you're here," Stan muttered, eyes narrowing slightly. "You're poking around those kids again, aren't you?" Alicia nodded slowly, holding his gaze steadily. "I found some things that suggest it wasn't an accident, and that you might have seen more than you've ever let on." Stan's expression hardened, but a tremor betrayed his composure. "You're right. I saw something, but it wasn't what you all thought. Wasn't some wild accident, wasn't nature that got them. Then what was it?" Alicia pressed gently, leaning closer, voice firm but compassionate. Stan's gaze shifted, eyes darting nervously toward the window. "Someone else was out there controlling things. Those kids weren't just lost. They were hunted, pushed to breaking. I heard them at night crying out, but when I tried to help, I was too late. Traps, confusion, panic. Someone clever, someone patient, someone twisted." "Martha Pratt," Alicia whispered, watching his reaction closely. Stan hesitated, swallowing hard before nodding faintly. "She wasn't alone. There were others helping her, even if they didn't know it. But she's dangerous. She's watching everyone always. You need to be careful, Alicia. She knows you're digging." The warning settled in Alicia's chest like ice. Stan's words were haunted genuine fear etched deeply into his weathered face. She rose slowly, feeling the weight of his revelation pressing heavily upon her. "Be careful," Stan repeated, his voice barely audible. "This darkness runs deep." Alicia drove away from Stan's cabin with the unsettling warning echoing persistently in her mind. Her fingers gripped the steering wheel tightly, the tension tangible as she considered her next move. She had to delve deeper into the network around Martha Pratt, especially the academic community that had surrounded those students. Returning to the heart of town, Alicia parked near the university campus. Memories surged as she walked its familiar paths, recalling the students' smiling faces from the faded photographs she'd studied obsessively. A chill gripped her as she approached the worn stone building housing Professor Mitchell's office, a place thick with scholarly prestige and bitter rivalries. Inside the cramped office, books lined the shelves from floor to ceiling, stacked haphazardly in precarious towers. Professor Mitchell, a tall, stern man with piercing eyes, glanced up from a cluttered desk as Alicia entered. "Alicia Brooks," he greeted coolly, adjusting wire-rimmed glasses. "To what do I owe this visit? I'm revisiting the 1995 disappearance," Alicia said carefully, her voice measured. "I have reason to believe crucial information was overlooked." Mitchell's brows knitted together briefly. "It was tragic, yes, but thoroughly investigated. Accidents, especially in wilderness settings, are rarely tidy." "It wasn't an accident," Alicia countered, her voice firm. "There were deliberate actions, manipulations. Did you know Martha Pratt well?" Mitchell hesitated, eyes narrowing in contemplation. She was competent, quiet, kept to herself mostly. His gaze shifted briefly, betraying discomfort. "What exactly are you implying?" "There's evidence suggesting her involvement," Alicia said bluntly, watching closely for Mitchell's reaction. "Someone else was orchestrating events, Professor. Someone familiar with the campers' routines and vulnerabilities. And your rivalry with Professor Evans, it was common knowledge." Mitchell stiffened slightly. "Evans and I competed academically, yes, but it went beyond academics, didn't it?" Alicia pressed gently, noticing his knuckles whiten as his fists clenched unconsciously. "Professional jealousy can cloud judgment. Did Pratt ever exploit that rivalry, perhaps subtly pushing you both to extremes?" Mitchell's jaw tightened. Martha had a way of insinuating herself quietly, sympathizing, validating frustrations. I never saw it clearly until later. She played all sides expertly. "So, you knew," Alicia murmured, realization dawning with unsettling clarity. "Yet you stayed silent." "I had suspicions," Mitchell admitted, eyes dark with regret. "Nothing concrete, nothing actionable. She was meticulous, careful never to fully implicate herself. And after the disappearances, silence seemed safer." Alicia felt anger rising, tempered only by understanding his fear. Silence only enabled her. Those students paid the price. Mitchell's gaze dropped, shame evident. "I know that now." Leaving the office, Alicia felt a heavy burden settle deeper upon her shoulders. Each revelation brought the web of complicity into sharper focus, confirming her fears. Martha Pratt's twisted influence reached far and wide, hidden beneath layers of secrecy and silence. Back in her cabin, Alicia spread Julia's journal pages across the table, their faded ink and frantic handwriting capturing the young woman's spiraling fear and paranoia. Each entry grew progressively fragmented and desperate, painting a haunting portrait of a mind unraveling under relentless stress. Alicia leaned closer, reading slowly, her heart tightening with each frantic word. "I know they're watching. Everyone smiles, but their eyes aren't right. Trust no one. Even friends look suspicious now. I hear whispers at night. They want us afraid." Why? The entries were chillingly consistent, reinforcing what Stan and Mitchell had suggested. Someone had intentionally manipulated the students' fears, driving them to the brink. Alicia noticed a recurring phrase, "the traitor among us," scrawled repeatedly with increasing urgency and panic. She recalled Julia, vividly bright, perceptive, vulnerable beneath a facade of quiet confidence. Alicia's gut twisted with sorrow and anger. Julia had sensed the threat long before anyone else had noticed, yet her warnings had been dismissed as hysteria. Hours passed as Alicia meticulously cross-referenced the journal entries with official search records and testimonies. She pieced together the disturbing timeline. Julia's deteriorating mental state coincided precisely with Martha Pratt's private counseling sessions, each session subtly planting seeds of doubt and fear. Pratt's careful manipulation had turned paranoia into isolation, gradually severing Julia from her companions and her sense of reality. Suddenly, Alicia's eyes widened at an entry dated just days before the students vanished. She smiles too sweetly, always watching. Her questions dig deep, twisting truths, planting doubts. Martha Pratt knows too much. How can she see through us like glass? She wants to break us. She is the traitor. The clarity of Julia's accusation struck Alicia like a physical blow. Julia had tried desperately to expose Pratt's sinister intent, her words a silent scream ignored until it was too late. Outside, darkness had long since enveloped the forest, amplifying the cabin's oppressive quiet. Alicia shivered, suddenly aware of how alone she was, how vulnerable in her isolated pursuit of the truth. A creak from the porch sent adrenaline surging through her veins, prompting her to rise swiftly, her senses heightened. She moved cautiously to the window, peering out into the moonlit clearing. Shadows played tricks on her vision, twisting ordinary shapes into threatening silhouettes. Was she being watched, as Julia had been? The thought chilled her deeply. Returning to the table, Alicia carefully gathered the journal pages, her resolve hardening with each deliberate movement. Julia's voice would not be silenced again. The truth, no matter how deeply buried, demanded exposure. Alicia knew that her next steps would plunge her further into danger, but retreat was not an option. The silence had lasted far too long. The first light of dawn broke weakly through the dense gray clouds as Alicia set out toward the coordinates she'd deciphered from Julia's cryptic notes. Her pulse quickened with every step deeper into the forest senses, alert to the subtle shifts around her, every snapping twig, every rustle of underbrush magnified by the weight of anticipation and dread. After hours of navigating thick brush and uneven terrain, Alicia finally reached a small clearing marked by an ancient gnarled oak. Its twisted roots clung desperately to the earth, hiding something beneath a barely visible opening obscured by leaves and debris. Carefully, Alicia cleared away the covering, revealing a rusted metal hatch. Her hands trembled slightly as she pried it open, hinges protesting loudly in the stillness. A narrow staircase descended into the gloom below, beckoning ominously. Taking a deep breath, Alicia stepped carefully into the darkness, her flashlight illuminating damp, moss-covered walls. The air grew colder, tinged with the unmistakable scent of decay and long-abandoned spaces. The stairs ended abruptly, opening into a small chamber cluttered with eerie remnants of forced isolation chains bolted to walls, rusty tools scattered across grimy surfaces, and several crude beds lined with ragged blankets. Alicia's flashlight caught on something pale protruding from a shadowy corner, and she approached cautiously. Her heart dropped as she realized she was staring at skeletal remains, wrists still bound by restraints, a silent testament to cruelty beyond comprehension. Anger and grief surged simultaneously, nearly overwhelming her. On a table near the far wall lay a series of journals carefully arranged as if awaiting her discovery. Alicia flipped through them, pages filled with methodical observations detailing the manipulation of fear, isolation, and paranoia. Each entry signed discreetly by Martha Pratt. Pratt had meticulously documented her twisted experiments, measuring the resilience and breaking points of her victims. A wave of revulsion swept through Alicia as she grasped the full depth of Pratt's calculated cruelty. Pratt had orchestrated every step, trapping her victims physically and psychologically. The journals laid bare Pratt's perverse fascination with human endurance, revealing a methodical brutality hidden behind her timid facade. A sudden noise echoed down from above, jarring Alicia from her horror-filled trance. Her blood ran cold as she realized she was no longer alone. Pratt must have anticipated Alicia's determination, expecting her arrival, drawing her into this chilling underground trap. Heart-pounding, Alicia quickly gathered the journals, clutching them protectively as she prepared to confront whatever awaited her above. The shelter hidden deep beneath the surface was a grim revelation, but Alicia knew the most dangerous confrontation still lay ahead. With a final determined breath, Alicia began her ascent, steeling herself for the sinister encounter she knew was inevitable. The truth demanded courage, and she would face whatever darkness waited above, ready to confront the evil that had haunted Lost Pine Ridge. Alicia emerged cautiously from the underground shelter, her eyes adjusting swiftly to the stark daylight filtering through the dense canopy. The forest felt oppressive, unnaturally quiet, every leaf and shadow seemingly complicit in concealing the menace that awaited her. Standing at the edge of the clearing was Martha Pratt, her frail figure, deceptively vulnerable eyes glittering with calculated intelligence. Pratt's usual meek demeanor had vanished, replaced by an unsettling calm that hinted at the darkness beneath her carefully maintained facade. "I was beginning to wonder if you'd find your way here," Pratt said softly, voice disturbingly composed. "You wanted me to find it?" Alicia responded, anger trembling through her steady tone. "Why?" Pratt smiled, slightly chillingly serene. "Validation, perhaps. Every experiment requires acknowledgement. You see, fear, isolation, paranoia, these are the true tests of human strength. Their breaking points fascinated me endlessly." Alicia fought to contain her revulsion, eyes fixed unwaveringly on Pratt. "You destroyed innocent lives for your sick fascination." "No," Pratt countered calmly, stepping closer. "I revealed their truth, their primal selves. In isolation, stripped of society's pretenses, people become authentic, raw. It was beautiful in its purity. There's nothing pure in cruelty." Alicia snapped, her voice edged with barely controlled fury. "Cruelty or enlightenment?" Pratt mused, unbothered by Alicia's rage. "You've seen humanity at its weakest, Alicia. You know survival comes down to choices made in absolute solitude. You've experienced it yourself, haven't you? Alone in these woods, burdened by failure, haunted by unanswered screams." Alicia's breath quickened, Pratt's words slicing precisely into old wounds. Her fingers tightened around the journals, grounding herself against the manipulative onslaught. "You won't manipulate me," Alicia hissed, her voice firm despite the turmoil within. "The truth is exposed. You won't escape justice." Pratt's eyes darkened slightly, a flash of something dangerous breaking through her composed exterior. "Justice? You still believe in justice out here? The only law is survival." Without warning, Pratt lunged, surprising Alicia with unexpected speed and strength. They crashed to the ground, dirt and leaves scattering in chaos. Pratt fought with desperate intensity, her slight build deceptively powerful as she clawed for the journals clutched tightly to Alicia's chest. The struggle was fierce, raw, a physical manifestation of the psychological battle they'd been waging since Alicia's arrival. Alicia fought back fiercely, driven by fury, grief, and determination. She managed to kick Pratt away, scrambling upright, breathing heavily. Panting, Alicia faced Pratt again, determination radiating from her stance. "It's over, Martha." Pratt rose slowly, eyes blazing with cold determination. "It's never over, Alicia. You can't erase the truths revealed in those woods." "Maybe not," Alicia conceded grimly. "But your manipulation ends here." The tension between them stretched tautly in the silence, the surrounding forest watching as two opposing forces faced the inevitable reckoning. The standoff between Alicia and Pratt hung tensely in the clearing, the surrounding woods oppressive and eerily still. Pratt's calm demeanor wavered slightly, her eyes darting toward the journals Alicia held protectively. Alicia recognized the fleeting desperation beneath Pratt's careful mask. "What happens now, Martha?" Alicia challenged, voice firm despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. "Your experiments are finished. Your secrets exposed." Pratt's lips twisted bitterly. "Secrets? Did you truly think I operated alone?" Alicia felt a chill race down her spine, a cold dread that tightened painfully in her chest. "What do you mean?" Pratt's gaze hardened, a mixture of spite and resignation in her expression. "You underestimate how easily people cooperate in darkness. Everyone has vulnerabilities, Alicia. Some willingly turned blind eyes. Others were quietly complicit, hoping to protect themselves, even those you trust." Alicia's thoughts raced Pratt's cryptic insinuations, weaving a disturbing web of suspicion. Her mind flashed to Professor Mitchell's shame-filled admission, Stan's terrified warning, and the librarian's hesitant revelations. Could one of them have knowingly aided Pratt? "Names," Alicia demanded, stepping forward determinedly. "Give me names." Pratt hesitated briefly, then smirked coldly. Why spoil the thrill of discovery? Every revelation is another test, another breaking point. You're strong, Alicia, but how many betrayals can you endure before you shatter? A rustle behind her snapped Alicia's attention away, heart pounding fiercely. Emerging from the shadows of the trees, the librarian stepped into view, expression carefully neutral, but eyes deeply troubled. "I'm sorry, Alicia," he murmured regretfully. "I didn't have a choice." Martha was thorough in ensuring cooperation. Shock and disbelief crashed over Alicia, the betrayal sharp and bitter. "You knew." He nodded slowly, shame etched deeply into his features. "She knew things about all of us, secrets, fears, weaknesses. She manipulated us expertly, ensuring silence and cooperation. I hoped someone would discover the truth, but I couldn't risk defiance openly." Pratt laughed softly, bitter amusement in her tone. "See, Alicia, fear drives compliance far better than loyalty." Alicia steadied herself, refusing to let despair overtake her resolve. "Fear can also drive courage," she countered, voice clear and steady. "You underestimated that." The librarian stepped toward Pratt cautiously, determination replacing his earlier hesitation. "She's right, Martha. It's over." Pratt's eyes narrowed dangerously, rage flaring brightly beneath her composed surface. "You're both fools! This isn't over! It never ends!" With a final venomous glare, Pratt turned abruptly, fleeing swiftly into the dense forest, the shadows swallowing her form instantly. Alicia moved instinctively, ready to pursue, but the librarian's gentle hand restrained her. "We know the truth now," he said quietly, eyes weary but resolute. "She can't escape forever." The woods closed silently around them, the echoes of betrayal hanging heavily in the air. Alicia knew this confrontation was far from over, but the painful revelations only deepened her determination. Nightfall deepened swiftly, enveloping Lost Pine Ridge in oppressive darkness. Alicia and the librarian moved cautiously, driven by urgency, as they followed the faint trail Pratt had left through the dense forest. Silence pressed heavily around them, broken only by their careful steps and ragged breathing, each moment fraught with tension. Alicia felt the weight of exhaustion and betrayal pressing down, yet her determination remained unyielding. Pratt's words echoed persistently in her mind, taunting, manipulating, testing the very limits of her resolve. She gripped the journals tightly, their pages containing the truth that had eluded justice for far too long. Ahead, the narrow path wound toward a rocky incline, steep and perilous in the darkness. The librarian paused, gesturing silently. Alicia nodded, proceeding cautiously upward, senses heightened by adrenaline. Each shadow seemed alive with hidden dangers, her heartbeat loud in her ears. Suddenly, a noise erupted above a cascade of loose stones and snapping branches as Pratt lunged from concealment, sending Alicia sprawling. They collided, tumbling together down the rough incline, branches and stones, battering their bodies mercilessly. Alicia grunted in pain, clinging desperately to the journals, even as the forest tore at her flesh. They landed roughly, breath knocked from Alicia's lungs. Pratt recovered swiftly, lunging again with desperate fury. Alicia, weakened but determined, fought back fiercely, striking with instinctive precision born from years of training and survival in these very woods. "You can't silence this truth," Alicia gasped, pushing Pratt away forcefully. "It ends now." Pratt's expression twisted desperation and madness clear in her eyes. "It's never over. People crave power over others, they always will. You're fighting human nature itself." Alicia shook her head, eyes blazing defiantly. "You're wrong, Martha. Human nature also includes strength, compassion, and justice, everything you've sought to erase." Pratt screamed in rage, lunging forward once more. Alicia sidestepped swiftly, leveraging Pratt's momentum to send her stumbling forward. Pratt collided with a tree, collapsing heavily to the ground, dazed and subdued. Breathing heavily, Alicia approached slowly, wary of further deceit. Pratt glared up defiance, still smoldering beneath her battered exterior. "You think this means victory, Alicia? Darkness remains. It always finds a way. And we'll always find the strength to fight it," Alicia countered firmly, kneeling to restrain Pratt securely. Moments later, flashlights pierced the darkness, voices calling urgently. The search party, summoned by the librarian's earlier call, descended swiftly to their location. Relief washed over Alicia, mingling with exhaustion and pain as Pratt was finally taken into custody. As she watched Pratt escorted away, Alicia felt a profound sense of relief, tempered by sorrow for those who could not be saved. Yet she knew their memories had driven her relentless pursuit of justice, fueling her courage through every dark moment. The forest whispered softly around her, its quiet embrace, a solemn reminder that survival required resilience, truth, and courage in the face of overwhelming darkness. As dawn broke softly over Lost Pine Ridge, Alicia stood quietly at the edge of the clearing, the first light gently dispersing the shadows that had dominated the forest. Her body ached from the previous night's struggle, yet a profound sense of purpose steadied her heart. Nearby law enforcement carefully documented the scene Pratt already secured and awaiting transfer to face the justice long overdue. Justice for the lost campers would come through the courts. Martha Pratt would stand trial for her horrifying actions, held accountable for every calculated cruelty she inflicted. Alicia knew the process would be long and painful, yet necessary for healing and truth. The librarian approached hesitantly, eyes downcast, guilt still weighing heavily on him. Alicia turned slightly, her expression gentle but resolute. "I should have spoken up sooner," he murmured softly, regret evident in his voice. Alicia placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "You spoke up now. That's what matters. Truth finds a way even through silence and fear." He nodded slowly, gratitude flickering briefly through his remorse. "I'll do whatever I can to help. That's all anyone can ask," Alicia replied quietly, her gaze returning to the forest where memories of the lost lingered in every rustling leaf and shifting shadow. The sun rose higher, illuminating the woods with gentle warmth, a stark contrast to the harrowing darkness they'd endured. Alicia took a slow, deep breath, feeling a quiet peace settle alongside her lingering grief. The forest was resilient, forever shaped by tragedy, but not defined by it. In the stillness, she made a silent promise, a vow to honor those lost by ensuring their story was remembered, their voices heard. She would advocate tirelessly, strengthening community awareness and resilience to prevent such tragedies from repeating. As golden rays of morning touched the horizon, Alicia felt renewed determination. She had spent a lifetime preparing for difficult journeys, and this, perhaps the most important of all, would be faced with the same resilience and resolve that had guided her for decades. "Rest now," she whispered softly, her voice barely audible in the tranquil dawn. "You will never be forgotten." The forest whispered quietly in response, bearing witness to her solemn vow, a silent guardian standing watch over the enduring promise of hope, truth, and remembrance.
Thank you for listening to Brody's Stories. Until we meet again.